Hello, welcome to Spotlight, focusing on island art in all its forms.
Spotlight, brought to you by the Isle of Man Arts Council.
This evening, the poetic firing gun started in the search for the island's next bard. We look forward to the latest concert in the wonderful Ramsey Music Society summer season. Hear about a unique piece of theatre coming to King's Court, and a taster from the Arts Society Isle of Man, and a lecture next week. Remember, do get in touch with any creative artistic endeavours you may be involved in, planning, hoping to create, or would really like to put in the spotlight. Poetic, theatrical, lots of theatre, musical, literary, ceramic, sculpture, drag, film, mime, social media, calligraphy. More calligraphers, please. Why not? Just email Howard Kane with an E at manxradio.com, spotlight@manxradio.com. Let's hear from you. The Arts Society Isle of Man is one such, not had them before, and I forgot to reply to one email. Smacked wrist all round. They are here, and we'll be hearing more from them today and next week. Anyway, several tasters this week ahead of events next week, with more in-depth chat to come. Take the Ramsey Music Society, for example, whose latest concert is going to take place at Ramsey Grammar School in the West Hall there next Monday. It's the 15th. To find out more, I had a chat with Chair of the RMS, Olga Eggert-Verstage.
Indeed. Our next concert is on Monday the 15th at 7:30 at the West Building of Ramsey Grammar School, our usual venue for over 50 years now. And it's our privilege this time to welcome a very renowned and very distinguished international flute player who is of German origin but lives in Salzburg in Austria and is coming specially to the Isle of Man to perform for the Ramsey Music Society, Bettine Clement. She also lived in the United States, where she worked in several states there promoting music, and she also lived in Brazil, being the first flute for the Symphony Orchestra of Belo Horizonte, big city in Brazil. So she has had very interesting and varied career, very experienced flute player, and she brings several flutes from around the world, which she would like to demonstrate to the Manx audience. And she acquired a flute collection while she lived abroad, including flutes from various countries. So we're looking forward to that, something different.
It is something different, and again, I was looking a little bit of her online presence, and one of her big things is she's very keen and loves animals, and there's quite a bit of her playing some of her various flutes out in fields to sheep and ponies and horses and all sorts. It looks a fascinating character.
She is hoping actually to go to Solby Wildlife Park and to make a video to add to her video collection of playing for animals and how animals react to the music. And she put special programs, educational programs on Austrian television about her experience of playing music to animals and how animals then interact with her and what music they prefer. And it seems that animals around the world prefer just traditional flute and not so much bass flute or flute piccolo, but they're not surprised, so probably most people would. But it's something that she's planning to do, so watch out, our Solby Wildlife might be on Austrian television before too long.
Well, you never know. And it's a fascinating topic in itself, this whole idea of whilst humans love listening to music, how animals react, and particularly sometimes to classical music, whether it's Mozart or Beethoven. And I know there are definitely places like milking parlours who play their cows classical music because they find they get better yields. And I was in South Africa earlier in the year, and there was actually a winery there, and they played classical music in their vines or to their vines because they felt it actually influenced the growing of the grapes. It's a fascinating topic.
It is indeed, because you don't know how musical waves influence various environment around us, be it animals or be it nature, be it flowers. There is also a theory that flowers grow better if soothing classical music is played, let's say, in orangeries or conservatories. So there is some unexplored or underexplored area of communication in sound and image. So it's something that she's doing as well, because she found that animals around the world can relate to music and probably it's something that she finds rewarding for herself. It's an interacting element that she enjoys. And I hope that our Solby Wildlife Park will provide her with inspiration.
I sincerely hope so. So you might, as Olga says, you might see it featured on her channel if you keep an eye out for her. She does have an online presence. The programme then on Monday, so she'll be playing flute. You will be accompanying her on piano and playing a few well-known numbers and a few less well-known.
We have very international indeed concert, because although she is from Germany originally, she lives in Austria, and I'm originally from Ukraine, but I live on the Isle of Man. So we have 4 countries represented in a way. And the first part of our program is more classical, where she is playing traditional flute repertoire, and I'm also going to play some classical solo. And the second part, we will start with more traditional flute repertoire, and again I shall be playing more traditional piano solo, but then we will switch to the solo flutes around the world, showcasing sounds from various countries, and then we will finish with some familiar melodies, hopefully Leonard Cohen and Morricone and so on, that people might be familiar with, arranged for flute and the piano. So this is our idea of showing the evolution of flute from 17th century music of Bach and going through to the 21st century music of Morricone. So hopefully our audience will enjoy that.
And again, for those who'd like to come along, and it's always a wonderful evening, it is, as you say, up in Ramsey at the grammar school there in the West Hall. But the important thing to notice, you don't book online, you turn up on the evening, and £15 cash. You do need cash for this, not card.
This is indeed the case. So far, Ramsey Music Society is so traditional, but we have not moved to the sum-up machine yet. But this is something that we hope to do in the future. However, cash on the day is the means to pay. And we always appreciate if people come with cash, because otherwise it becomes quite difficult to get tickets. So we don't want anybody to be disappointed, and we just want to advise our potential audience, music-loving audience, that please do come with cash. It's £15 per person for adults, and children come free, or those who are in full-time education come free. And we hope that some of our aspiring flute players might come as well, because we have strong flute teaching on the island, so perhaps some of future stars would like to join us in the evening.
Don't forget, if you want to go along, it is cash only. Wouldn't want you to be disappointed. Do go along though. Wonderful evenings, a great chance to see some world-class musicians in an intimate and friendly setting.
Spotlight, brought to you by the Isle of Man Arts Council.
Now here's something a little different. Last Word, a piece of theatre performed by the theatre group Restless Sleepers. It's described as a performance piece where the audience are invited to dinner with real scenarios, invented scenarios, scenarios in future and past. The Last Supper is said to be part performance, part meal, with each audience member given a table number, case number, incident number. 13 of the meals are Last Suppers. Intrigued? To find out more, I spoke with artistic director of Restless Sleepers, Mole Wetherill, from his home in Belgium.
I like to think of it like a party or a celebration, although, it is about death. Maybe it's more like a wake. Yeah, there's lots of different stories within the whole piece. So there are a number of last moments that we recall throughout history. Some are invented, and some we've done some proper research and found out what happened to people on their deathbed. It's not a typical play. It's more of a performance event.
Okay, and is it something from an audience perspective? Is it immersive? Are the audience with the actors and players, or are they viewing them?
So we have a big table, which is where the audience sits. It's like a U shape. So there are 13 on each side. So it has the image of the Last Supper by Da Vinci, if you will. And then there's our table, which is a long table, which we sit at and sit behind. And some of those 39 audiences that were sat at the table, some of them might get a meal, a last meal request from a prisoner who was on death row in Texas. It depends on the bingo ticket that you're handed on the way in. So it's a bit of
a bit of a lottery.
Everyone gets offered a glass of wine or water, red wine, water. It's quite religious in that respect. And throughout the show, we eat the last words of last people throughout history. Those are written on little pieces of edible rice paper. In effect, that's the kind of show, really.
Okay, and what's the genesis of this then?
It was a complete accident, actually. There was we got asked to make a Last Supper for a festival here in Ghent, where I live, and the programmer said, "Would you like to make a Last Supper?" And I said, "Yeah, cool." And I said, "I'm really interested in the idea of eating your words." There was a film by Peter Greenaway at the time called The Cook, the Thief, the Wife, and his lover.
Famous piece.
Yeah, and the lover is force-fed pages from a book. He's a librarian. And that image was burning in my mind as I was talking. And then my friend Tim, who's actually still in the show, said, yeah, we could use rice paper. And I went, "Oh, no, I was just thinking that." Everyone's going to think it's your idea, I said to him. And then just out of the blue, this guy, and I still don't know who he is, came over to our debate and a table. We sat around and said, "I've got these last meal requests from prisoners on death row, Texas. Would they be interested?" And I said, "Yeah, cool, we can get on." And that actually is the genesis of the piece. That it was a happy accident, and bringing those things together seemed to really work. I mean, it must work because we've been doing it for nearly 20 years, and this will be, I think, in the Isle of Man, it'll be about 250.
Wow.
Show number 250, yeah. So, I'm happy with the project and its history and what it's achieved.
And what sort of reaction do you get from audience?
I mean, it's always quite mixed. Generally, it's a really good atmosphere. People stick around afterwards, and one of the meals that we serve is a birthday cake with 7 pink candles, which is always a favourite. And at the end of the show, and this is quite common, people share the foods that they've been handed over, and the cake gets passed around the table, and people stick around, and we're happy to stick around and carry on chatting with people. And generally, it's a really good kind of party atmosphere with this dark cloud of last words and death, on the horizon.
Yeah.
So, I mean, weird things like someone tried to smash open a coconut in the middle of a show.
Interesting.
Yeah, weird. That was in Australia, though. But yeah, I know. I mean, we've done it in 7 different languages, and it's been pretty similar in Europe. In Italy, they really cheer when the food arrives. Everyone's like, eh.
Says a lot about the culture.
Yeah. It's a positive feeling for the people.
And are the audience? I mean, are the audience sort of passive, as it were, that they're not expected to sort of take part as such?
No, I don't. I really don't like that. I really don't like audience participation and being put in the spotlight and stand up and do something. It's I mean that. Their number is called, and the lights go on all the tables, and where the meal ends up in front of this person. It's a bit of a focus, but it's not like it isn't like we make a massive deal out of it. It's actually quite passive.
Is the food actually consumed during the performance, or is that sort of left until the end of the actual performance itself?
Some people eat during the show. Some people, I mean, generally the liver and onions doesn't get touched. The plate that I've already mentioned with the birthday cake, it's a massive. It takes 3 journeys for the chefs to take all that food over. And normally people don't eat that because it's so much and start to pass it around. We do have a little bit of an interval and where we top everyone's glass of water or wine up, which is a moment where people snack.
Yeah.
But again, it's kind of mixed. There's no rules really. It's like if you want to eat, you can, but.
Sounds a fascinating piece, and you're mentioning this is all sort of performed in front of this backdrop of Da Vinci's Last Supper in the picture there. I mean, are there deliberate religious connotations in making people sort of think of, the end of this life and the hereafter, or is that more coincidental?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of religious connection in the piece. I mean, it's 13. It's unlucky because of, I think it's the number 13. 13 is unlucky because of the Last Supper and what happened. It's mathematics and it's quite boring, but there are 52 incidents, which is the same as a pack of cards. And when I was originally writing it, my dad was dying, so that was really quite there in the back of my mind, in what was happening there. Yeah, we say the last words of Jesus: "Forgive them, Father; they know not what they do," which is quite a nice phrase for our project. And we don't wear shoes. Actually, it's like a little bit of a nod to washing of the feet.
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit of, I suppose, religious iconography and connections within the project, but nothing that's massively highlighted. It's not like it's not our thing. We're quite subtle in those layers. Sometimes we add in some different incidents or people who might be famous from the area. It's like when we did Melbourne, we were at the National Gallery, and just up the road is where Ned Kelly, "Such is life," was his last words. Ned Kelly was executed, and I can't remember the guy's name, but I'm trying to think of a way of introducing some Manx into the piece.
We should also say, as well as the actual performance evenings, that there's also an opportunity people want to go and view the dress rehearsal.
Yeah. So the first night is a dress rehearsal. We'd have to rehearse anyway. So you can see that on the Wednesday. On the Thursday and Friday, it's a full show. But I mean, the dress rehearsal, it's possible that we won't have food on the dress rehearsal. We'll just kind of mime that, maybe a couple of bananas in place of full meals. But yeah, there's quite. I mean, this project has been on the cards for years. We've been trying, and we're so happy to eventually have got to present it on the Isle of Man. I'm actually from Blackpool, so on a clear day you can actually see the Isle of Man from
Absolutely.
From yeah,
absolutely. Not quite from Belgium, definitely from Blackpool.
No.
The other thing I was looking at, which is a really nice idea, this of making theatre for all. So for those who, we all know at the moment, cost of living, and a lot of people are sort of struggling, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have access to the arts. So that there are reduced tickets for those who might be struggling financially at the moment.
Please, we need to support people in getting them to see things, and there are a lot of curious people out there who don't get the opportunities. So any help like that is really greatly appreciated.
Sounds fascinating, doesn't it? I might just have to go along. Tickets available, of course, online via kwc.im. Lovely idea about those who might be struggling financially if you can't afford the full price. And of course, if you want to see the rehearsal side of things, check out that dress rehearsal. You can go along. I don't know what the last words of the Renaissance painter Raphael were, but if you're interested in the man and his work, and who wouldn't be, there's a chance to find out more at the latest lecture for the Arts Society Isle of Man. It's taking place at the Lecture Theatre at the Manx Museum next week. To tell me more about that, I spoke to the chair of Arts Society Isle of Man, Liz Berry.
On Tuesday, the 16th of June at 11:30 at the Manx Museum, we've got Rapheal, draftsman, painter, architect and designer. And our lecturer this time is Lydia Goodson. She is an art historian and a lecturer specialising in the art and material culture of Renaissance Italy. And just a lovely little quote here from the poster that we've put up. It says here, "The painter Raphael was so famous and admired in his lifetime that when he died in 1520 at the age of only 37, it was remarked in Rome that his death had caused such grief in heaven that the walls of the Vatican trembled and cracked."
Lovely line, a lovely line. Again, it's sort of, I love it when you hear that and you think he was an A-lister of his days, wasn't he? He was
that's right.
Absolutely right
that's
up
right.
there. And
yes.
You often think fame is something which is quite modern, but of course it goes back.
Yes, absolutely. And you're saying that about fame in its day. We often have talks on artists like Sorolla, a Spanish artist, very, very famous in his day, end of the 19th century into the 20th century. And he was a painter of light, and he did these wonderful paintings of children on the beach, in their beautiful white dresses. And, you sort of think, oh, yes, I think I've seen one of those once. But in his day, he was so famous and so well known, and it's lovely to just bring these people back and sort of revive interest, and that's the sort of thing that we sometimes do.
Yeah, fame's a very fickle thing, as they say, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we'll be hearing lots more from Liz next week. As I realised, it's the first time I think we've heard from the Arts Society Isle of Man. So next week, Liz will be explaining more about the society, its history and what they do, and the difference between the Arts Society Isle of Man and the Isle of Man Arts Society. Confused? Well, check in next week. That lecture, 11:30, Manx Museum Lecture Theatre next Tuesday the 16th. Members free, non-members very welcome, but it'll cost you a tenner. Finally this evening, it's hard to believe, but the search is just about to start once again for the island's next national poet, the Manx Bard. Where does the time go? 8th Manx Bard, the next one will be the 12th. Michael Manning, the 8th Bard, came into the spotlight, the studio, to fire the poetic starting gun.
It's going to be Bard number 12, yeah. None of us can quite believe it, but we're delighted to be looking again for the 12th Bard. So applications are just opening. So this is the starting gun, if you like, for the summer of poetry.
Sounds good to me. So if anyone's coming to this for the first time, hard to believe after 10 years, and like I said, coming to Bard number 12, but if someone said to you, oh, what is the role of the Manx Bard, what would you say?
See, the role of the Manx Bard is really to be a cultural and poetic role for the island. It's somebody who is passionate about poetry, can write and recite their poetry, and we're looking for really the best poets of the island. We've got a very diverse collection of bards who write in a number of different styles. It's a role that's sponsored by the Isle of Man Arts Council, supported by Culture Vannin, so it carries a lot of cultural weight, if you like. And it's really a public role that we want people to reflect poetically on the island, upon the issues that are close to their hearts, and to bring poetry to as wide an audience as possible.
And I suppose, in a way, I guess you could say perhaps there is a template to a degree for what's expected from the Manx Bard, but having said that, as you've just hinted at there, pretty much every bard we've had so far has been very different to the previous incumbent.
Yeah, because it's it's very much tied to the individual. We're all very different, and we write in different styles, and we have different interests. I mean, there are some basics, of course. We want somebody who loves poetry, who enjoys reading and writing poetry and is passionate about that. And we want somebody who can recite that poetry well. Because it's a public role, we want somebody who enjoys the performance aspect of poetry too. And so those are the two base skills that we're really looking for. After that, we're very open-minded, and we would love to hear from as many people as possible who would like to throw their hat into the ring.
And that's the crucial thing, isn't it, I think? And we've mentioned this before. And the funny thing with poetry, in that if you're an actor or an actress, then chances are you are a performer. If you're a poet, you are not necessarily used to performance, because we all know, you know, and I certainly know, poets who write lots of poetry, but very rarely perform it.
Absolutely, and there's nothing wrong with that. We love people writing poetry. If it's just for you or just for a small group of friends and a small circle, that's absolutely fine. I'd be slightly more hesitant about going for a role like the bard if that was the case. Partly because the role of the bard historically as well in Celtic communities was a very oral, public kind of role, and we want somebody who can bring their poetry to a wider audience. That said, if you haven't sort of read or recited in public a lot but want to give it a go, please do. For myself, I hadn't shared my poetry publicly really at all before I made an application to the Manx Bard team, and so we're very happy for people. Don't feel that you have to have some sort of history of recitals or anything like that to apply. We just want to see people who are enthusiastic, who are passionate about poetry, passionate about bringing that to the community, and passionate about using poetry to reflect on where we are as an island, where we are in the world, where we are as people, all those things. We want people to bring their interests to the role, because that's what makes it unique.
All details are online on the Manx Bard Facebook page for entries. Closing date 7th of August. Plenty of time to get your entries in. Much more from Michael and a poem next week. That's about it for this week, though. See you next week. And in the meantime, be good. Whatever you're doing, be creative about it. Pimo.